Sometimes you remember something as being better than what it really was or is. And this was my go-to radio chassis. It's a National 57, NC 57. And before I got enamored by BC 348, this is what I was working on. I said, this is probably one of the best tube radios there are for AM broadcast. And some of the shortwave. It goes up to 54 megacycles, but that end is sort of deaf. But anyway, I bought these BC 348s. They have the top of the AM broadcast band. I could sort of get Sweet 16 on them. 2 to 3 radios have an antenna tuner built into it, where you can tune the antenna. But I kept thinking about this radio. Then I got the Collins, thinking it was going to have a really good AM broadcast, and it was poor. Getting 2 stations nearby here, it wasn't really doing that well. I noticed my my go-to radio, the Radio Shack unit DX390, when it's plugged into a power supply, not on batteries, it's very noisy. It picks up a lot of noise, but I seem to remember this radio, this chassis, is not getting that noise on it from being plugged into the AC. So I brought this back into its position, and as soon as I turned it on, this is what I got. Well, I take that back. I gotta move this over. All right. It gets the station very clearly. And notice the null on the dial. Let me see if I'm in the frame. Watch how this thing nulls out. Let's go up to the next band, the Sweet 16. All right, we're going up to 1600 AM. Neither the BC 348 or the Collins works as well as this radio does. And that's what I was into this radio. I have 3 of them. And I was really happy with the way it was pulling these stations in, because I could actually leave it on there. It's a little tinny because the speaker is not in a cabinet. And I have 2 other ones that have been finished. This is just the test bed where I added in a mixer for the BFO so I could get sideband on this. And it was a matter of just changing a tube, adding a resistor, and rewiring a wire. It was real simple. Anyway, I sort of remember this as being much better. Now I have to figure out why. Now, one of the things I heard about the BC348 is it's got a triple tune front end, but it's not that sensitive a radio. Now, the Collins radio, basically, they tried 3 different models, or 3 different versions to try to get the AM broadcast band to work correctly, and it doesn't. It works, but not as good as this radio does. Now, this is a single conversion radio. Like I said, it was a National NC57. There's a whole boatload of them. Go read up on the reviews. Nobody says anything bad about this, except on the high band, 54 megacycles. It gets deaf up there, and I think they used to also mention 10 meters wasn't that great on this radio. But this is the same insides as what was in my NC125 that I used to DX AM with all the time. And then I went up to a ICOM R71A. It was terrible on AM broadcast. And at the shortwave store, they said, oh, they detune the AM broadcast down, or they desensitize it. And I'm like, that makes no sense at all. Why would you desensitize the AM broadcast? Well, they don't want it to overload. Well, why would it overload if it's such a great radio? Well, the ICOM R71A with a giant 6-foot loop that I was using here with one, it was okay, but the aerial was doing all the work. This radio here picks up the same stations without the 4-foot loop. Now there is a 20-foot piece of wire that runs down the length of the hallway in the house here. But now I'm zeroing in on these IF cans. All right, I think they're in the frame. Yeah, I've never seen anything like them before. Just realized someone mentioned in one of the groups, look at those IF cans. They were especially made by National for National, and National made parts at way back for radios. And I'm thinking, okay, there's something special about those IF cans. Just the fact how sharp the tuning is on this. Now, one guy said he had a Halcrafters S40, and then he was happy enough to get one of these, and it was so much better. And it's sharper. When you tune it, it's much sharper. The carrier, and it's just a better radio. So I'm going to study on this. This was my favorite radio until I got the BC348. And I just like the BC348 because it had flown on bombers. You know, I wasn't really saying to myself, how well does this thing work? Now, what baffled me a little bit was it only did the top of the AM broadcast band, and it never really got that Sweet 16 station, which is this one here. I like how tubes that take a while to heat up. This station here, now it's going to sound tinny because of the speaker. A lot of times I just turn the radio on and they play a song. They got an incredible playlist on Sweet 16. They must get their radios downloaded off the internet, their library. They probably don't have a great library. They get a great library. So I would turn this station on and they'd play a song I hadn't heard in 50 years. And then I would shut it off and go over on YouTube and then play the song nice and clear with my headphones. And I would say every day I would put this on the Sweet 16 station. And I'd say, I haven't heard that song. Let me go look that song up. And then I switched to BC348 and I stopped doing that. It was like part of the day was gone. I told you I have 3 BC348s. I started buying things in threes. It's sort of a sickness. I caught it myself. But in other words, I realized I was buying things in threes. It took 3 of each radio to get it out of my system. So I have 3 of these NC57s, and this one here I was going to do a restoration on the chassis, and the whole thing is missing. When I bought it, it didn't have any of the original knobs on it. It's a basket, basically a basket case, and I figured I'd use it for parts. And this radio has anti-backlash gear on the main dial. This model here has a coil and a tuning cap that you can adjust to get the frequency calibrated to the dial within 1%. It's a really good radio for the price range when it was made. You should own at least one National 57 if you get into old radios. It's really, I would say it's a pretty hot little radio. But don't forget, going up by the CB band, it's going to be a little deaf. And there are mods for it. But the radio is just simple, and this one here you can tell it's been used a lot because it's got Radio Shack replacement tubes. It's got some tubes that have been replaced in it. But I realized this thing actually picks up better than the Collins. The Collins has some issues in it. You can tell when you look at the schematic for version 1, 2, 3, and 4. They kept changing the AM broadcast band, which is using 3 mixers. The Collins only uses 1 mixer when you go to the bands 2 and 3, which would be ship to shore, marine band. And then when you get up to the band 4, which is 80 meters, they use 2 mixers. And it works good, and it's a dual conversion, so you know that you're not going to get any image frequencies, which this radio is single conversion. But this radio has better sensitivity, and this started me thinking about building a frequency generator that's in a shielded box that puts out 1 microvolt. You know, one microvolt, 2 microvolts, 3 microvolts, So I could actually stick it on different radios and see how really sensitive they are. You know, it's when you read on the internet, someone says, "Oh, it's a really sensitive radio." Compared to what? Compared to what? What band? How does it do on the AM broadcast band? See, these nationals, they were made to really get AM broadcast band really good to start with, before we start switching to shortwave stations. And these other radios, they're looking to make the ham bands the best, or basically hype them up that you'll believe it. Now, the Collins, you have to give it, it's a dual conversion radio. The BC348 is a single conversion. So the single conversion is it's subjected to a possibility it can get image frequencies caused by the radio itself. It lets enough of the frequency comes in through the antenna that it mixes with the oscillator and the mixer, and it gets on the band, on the dial in two different places. Now, a really good radio, it's dual conversion. You only get the station on the frequency it belongs on, and that's why you go to dual conversion. But you don't need dual conversion anymore. And someone's going to be, "That's not true." Yeah, it basically is true. There's almost nothing on shortwave that's worth listening to anymore. It's dying, it's dead, it's killed by cell phones. But your AM broadcast band, if you like to DX and listen to stations maybe in Canada, or maybe the Grand Ole Opry, this is what you want, an NC57. And I'm sorry I closed my comments section. You know, other people say, "I got one of them, it's really good, I need it." But I'm going to also get the guy, "Oh, I got one of them, I never got around to recapping it." See, there's pros and cons to leaving the comments section open. But I want to tell you, if you collect radios, tube radios, get yourself an NC57 and don't go too crappy on it. This one was really cheap. This has got a nicotined chassis, so it's got issues, but I will be figuring out why that IF cans are so good. You know, it's definitely the sharpness of the tuning of this radio is coming from those IF cans. I think that's it. All right, that's it.